Welcome to the breakdown. Thanks for being here at MillerSheWrote.com. And please welcome my good friend from All Rise News, Adam Klasfeld. Hi, Adam. How are you?
How's it going, Allison? I'm doing well.
Good. I'm a little excited. First of all, it's funny because Sandwich Guy's trial started today. So I've been laughing about the words that have been bandied about in that particular thing that's happening. But also, we could be a step closer to seeing what's in volume 2 of the yet unreleased Jack Smith final report when he was special counsel. Volume 1 we have. If you want to hear Volume 1, we recorded it word by word over on the Unjustified podcast back when it was called the Jack podcast. But it's still in that feed if you want to hear or read Volume 1. But we never got to see Volume 2, which is the classified documents case. So something happened today in the 11th Circuit. And before we get to that, Adam, I just want to give a little bit of background that sort of led us to where we are today, if that's okay with you.
By all means.
All right. So last July, I'll never forget, Judge Eileen Cannon dismissed the charges against Donald Trump in the documents case, in the espionage case, citing that Jack Smith was not lawfully appointed, which is super funny because of the Lindsey Halligan stuff that's going on right now. And maybe we can talk about that in a minute. But she dismissed those charges on those grounds, and then Jack Smith appealed, and I was looking forward to seeing that through its through its logical end, which that he was not unlawfully appointed. But the appeal was dropped after Donald Trump won the election, and so we never got to find out. So come January 21st, Judge Cannon put, I believe it was January 21st, the day after Trump was inaugurated, she filed an injunction. She issued an injunction um, barring the release of Volume 2 of the report because there were still charges or dismissed without charges, I can't remember, pending against his co-conspirators, Walt Nauta and De Oliveira. Then in February, Trump's Department of Justice dropped all that and said, we're not going to bring charges anytime in the future. And after that point, we should have been able to see Volume 2. So a nonprofit, I believe from Columbia University called the Knight Institute, filed a Freedom of Information Act request, which was quickly denied by the Department of Justice, Trump's DOJ, saying, sorry, Judge Cannon has an injunction forbidding the release of Volume 2. Our hands are tied. And so then they filed a motion to intervene on Judge Cannon's docket in the criminal case, asking for that report to be released. And that is where it has sat for the last 8 months with not a peep from Judge Cannon, probably just sitting there waiting for something like this to happen, because last month, Knight Institute filed with the 11th Circuit for a writ of mandamus saying, can you please tell her to not release the file, not release the report, just tell her to rule on our motion, please, so that we can appeal it or whatever. And so that's what the 11th Circuit responded to today. Do I have that more or less correct?
That's correct. You covered the waterfront with it. I will add that the 11th Circuit today issued their ruling in the form of writ of mandamus, which is exceedingly rare. It means the lower court just didn't do its job. Here, didn't do its job to adjudicate this motion that has been ripe for months. The Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University filed this in February. And as you pointed out in that introduction, Allison, the co-defendants in that case, Walt Nauta and Walter de Oliveira, they are no longer facing criminal charges. The entire pretense of why Volume 2 of Jack Smith's report had to be under wraps was you have to give them a fair trial, and this is unlawful pretrial prejudice against them if this goes live, if all of the allegations brought forth by Jack Smith become public record. Well, there's nothing left. There's no case left to protect the pretrial rights of Nauta and Oliveira. Where is this report? And here you have the 11th Circuit for the third time giving a strong rebuke and dressing down of Judge Eileen Cannon, who from the beginning, remember, she had this case in the investigative process before it was assigned to her docket in the criminal case. And the 11th Circuit, twice before, had overruled her in humiliating fashion. The first time called her injunction that was blocking the FBI from scrutinizing the classified documents seized at Mar-a-Lago before privilege review could take place, called that a radical injunction, struck it down, and ended the special master review. So it's a hell of a development that the third rebuke by an extraordinarily Trump-friendly judge who happened to get one of the strongest cases against him.
Yeah. Yeah, and so now here we are with the Knight Institute, a month ago asking the 11th Circuit to do something, and they have. And there's some interesting back and forth between, I think it was Andrew Weissman who interviewed Jack Smith, asking about why he never went to the 11th Circuit to have her removed and how there were discussions about that. I think some of that information is going to be coming out in Carol Lenning's book as well. uh, which a lot of people consider one of the errors, if there were any errors that Jack Smith made, that was one of them. The other one was bringing the case in Florida in the first place, because they had a 1 in 3 chance of drawing Judge Cannon. But now we're here, and to see the 11th Circuit give her they gave her 60 days? Is that calendar days or is that court days?
I don't know if they specified whether it was calendar day. It doesn't say business days, so one would assume it's just 60 days flat. They have 60 days to adjudicate it, because I think it says in the ruling they haven't had any proceedings whatsoever since this has been briefed. She's just sat on it. Is there going to be a hearing on this? Is there going to be anything? So the 60-day clock looks like it's ticking.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if on day 60 at 11:59, she'll order some sort of a hearing or series of hearings. She loved to do this in the original case, where she sets up a secret docket through her email, because we don't know what could be released to the public, and then makes all these really slow decisions. Because at first I was like, well, she'll probably just deny it. And I'm like, no, that's not her style. Her style would be to set up a series of hearings over the next year and then have an appeals process and then bring it out on the public docket with the redactions and then have arguments about those redactions and then deny it, right? Like that's more the way that she likes to delay these things for Donald Trump. So I'm interested to see what she does here, but I have a feeling it's going to, whatever it is going to take a lot of time.
Well, so what the court ordered, they gave her 60 days to fully adjudicate the motion. So I think
Ah,
that what they're telling her is whatever you're doing in the interim, you're done 60 days from now.
they
And I would
knew, they knew, they saw it coming.
Right.
They were
And I remember,
hearings.
I went at when that was happening. I was in D.C. for the January 6th case, the conspiracy to defraud the United States with the 2020 election subversion, and I was in Fort Pierce, Florida, for the classified documents case. And I remember the hearing where the arguments over whether Jack Smith was legitimately appointed. I think that even with Judge Cannon, and there was, of course, this in long history, folks who watched that hearing were very surprised to see her dismiss a case based on her remarks, even in that hearing. But you're right, she just dragged it out. And to see everything happening at a pretty brisk pace in Washington, D.C., and have a very slow roll down in Florida, in the city filled with peacocks and the scampering lizards going about. It's a nice city, Fort Pierce, Florida. But it was just such a dramatic change to see one court moving briskly and then the other court, Judge Cannon's court, giving it a slow roll. And here's the 11th Circuit saying you have 60 days to be done, not to do their next step, not to queue up your next oral arguments. You're done after 60 days, or else we act on this writ of mandamus.
Now I'm assuming then her fully adjudicated thing will be to deny, for whatever cooked up reason she comes up with, this motion. right, to consider basically vacating her injunction, right, so
Right.
that the file could be released. What I couldn't remember, first of all, was whether Jack Smith actually filed Volume 2 on her docket at all, or if the only copy lives in the Trump Department of Justice. And I think the only copy lives in the Trump Department of Justice.
It's hard to tell because if it exists on her docket, it would exist under seal. It has never been publicly released, even in part. She had released this. Remember that I think there was Trump tried to keep both volumes of the reports under wraps, and he lost on volume one, and we got to see volume one with redactions. Volume two, though, was the one that was likely to have information that we didn't know. So it was really, even though it was a partial victory for Trump, it was the one that really mattered for him.
And if memory serves, didn't Eileen Cannon actually try to block both volumes of the report? But then there was some sort of an appeal, and she was not allowed to do that because it had nothing to do with her or something. I can't quite remember. Maybe Trump asked her to block both volumes. So she was somehow involved in trying to block volume one, but I can't remember exactly what that was. I'll have to look it up.
Y- Yeah, to be honest, it was toward the end of a very busy term. Everyone was preparing for the second Trump term when all this was going down. So I forget the road to it, but how it ended up was volume one was eventually allowed to be released, and volume two still remained under wraps under the rationale that, well, we need to protect Nauta and De Oliveira's rights. Now,
Right.
both of them, the cases against them have vanished.
Right. And that was the last thing that stopped it from legally being able to be released. I'm sure she'll come up with another reason, but I guess the other options here are she could grant it. Um, and then would then the Knight Institute ask the DOJ to release it and they say no? Or would she order the DOJ to release it and they say no? Because I'm sure they'll say no, and file some sort of an appeal, probably to the Supreme Court, or she'll deny it and they'll appeal to the 11th Circuit.
Well, there are any number of ways that this could still come out. There's what the Knight Institute is asking for is for her to drop her injunction, saying there's no longer any need for any injunction, and uh, that's the hurdle between this report and the public sunlight. There's also the fact that Jack Smith wants a public hearing, and he specifically asked the committee to give him the authorization to be able to testify about this report, that Congress can take that action. So there are multiple avenues for this to happen. He can testify on his investigative findings. If the Republicans would agree to a public hearing on this, good luck. But there's also the litigation route, and that's the First Amendment battle by this Columbia University-based free speech group.
Yeah. And then something else that just kind of happened today that I thought was really interesting, but since we're talking about prosecutors not being lawfully appointed, it seems as in an effort to rebut the motions to dismiss from Jim Comey and Letitia James, which are being heard in the South Carolina circuit, I believe, by Judge Curry, a Clinton appointee, because they can't be heard in the Eastern District of Virginia in case she has to bring cases in front of them in the future if it fails. Lindsey Halligan, that her appointment is unlawful. And I guess to combat that, Pam Bondi has actually filed a declaration saying that I have retroactively appointed Lindsey Halligan going back to September 22nd, which happens to be a couple of days before the statute of limitations expired in Comey's case, as a special attorney, right,
Right.
to the Department of Justice. I am not a lawyer, but I laughed really hard at that. And then I saw Steve Vladeck saying this isn't a thing, and a lot of other people saying I'm not an expert, but this doesn't seem like a thing either. Um, have we ever? I can't recall having ever seen somebody try to retroactively. Jack Smith certainly didn't do it because Judge Cannon's argument for dismissing him was that there wasn't an office created for him to occupy. If you had created an office and then a minute later appointed him to it, everything would be cool. Which is completely bananas. But Jack Smith didn't come back and say, well, I retroactively appoint, or Merrick Garland didn't come back and say, I retroactively appoint Jack Smith to an office that I just created, but I actually created years ago. Like they never tried this. I've never seen anything like this.
Well, not only has this not happened, there's never been a need for it to happen because there's, to just put a fine point on it, this is someone who was put into this office, installed for the purpose of enacting Trump's openly declared political agenda of bringing these two cases after no one else would do it. And so one of the big critiques of the Comey case and the Letitia James case from the jump has been all of the career prosecutors said no. The politically appointed U.S. attorney who had bipartisan respect, Eric Siebert, said no. And there was reporting from way back when that even Pam Bondi was squeamish about these cases, that she didn't think that this should go forward. It was never said on the record, but there was some reporting indicating that. So now, stung by that criticism of people pointing out that Trump's hatchet woman is bringing these cases and that the legitimacy of her appointment is in question, they're trying to fortify the gravitas of the case by saying, actually, you know what? We stand by it all the way to the top. And it took several weeks to get there, but now it doesn't, they are trying to claim that this is no longer Lindsey Halligan freelancing to please her boss and former client, Donald Trump. And so this is to that point, Allison, you're right. It's never happened before, but there's never been a need for it because the entire sequence of events is just so unprecedented, so outrageous, and so against the meaning of a justice system in a democracy.
Yeah, it's I think we need new adjectives at this point. I think unprecedented is tired. I think it's furloughed. It's not getting paid for all the work that it's doing right now. But yeah, it reminds me of sort of the whole premise of these things when we step back and take a look at it from a 50,000-foot view. Like, I've never seen this thing before. You're like, yeah, it's because we've never been in a situation where anything like this has ever been warranted or had needed to be attempted. It was like when Neguse was asked what Democrats are going to do if SNAP goes away. And he's like, I reject the premise of your question. Why don't you ask me about why Trump is illegally withholding the reserve benefits for people? Let's start there. Let's take a step back and look at the whole entire picture. And so you're right. This is it's banana pants where we're at, and
Right.
it's going to be interesting to see what happens in 60 days. January 2nd. I've already put it on my calendar. I actually put it on for January 1st to make sure to pay attention to it the next day. I think that's day 60. So we'll see what happens. But I don't think the 11th Circuit here is poised in a very favorable position for continuing to keep this report under wraps. I imagine she'll deny it and there will be an appeal. And I think at that point, would it go to the same 3-judge panel that took this original, that put this thing out today? Because that's an Obama, Biden, Trump panel. And I imagine it would, since it's kind of the same case, I imagine it would go to the same panel.
It's quite possible it arose from the same investigation. Now that panel had it's quite possible they would receive it. And to your point, one of the judges on this panel is a Trump appointee, and they all said that Trump appointee Aileen Cannon, stop dragging your feet, get on with this. You have 60 days. So I see no reason why it would go to a different panel.
Yeah, and there was no dissent or anything. I'm assuming,
No.
I didn't see the words per curiam, but I'm assuming that's what this is, right? It was everyone was in agreement.
Absolutely. There's no clear author on this. It just says it's by the court. The court is speaking and the court is saying, hurry up, Aileen Cannon. Come on, Aileen.
Come on, Eileen. Now I'm gonna go, "Come on, Eileen."
Well, child of the '80s, what can I say? But,
Yes, yes. I'll get my little overalls and start doing my little ska moves. Thank you
Mhm.
so much, for, coming on and explaining, this and discussing it with me. I'm optimistic that we may be a step closer, and the fact that, you just explained that she's not allowed to do her weird shenanigans about holding hearings over the next 6 months. It has to be adjudicated full stop at the end of 60 days.
Right.
So, very good, my friend. Everybody, if you get a chance, subscribe to All Rise News. Where are you headed next? What are you covering next?
Well, so this week I was originally going to cover the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There's going to be an evidentiary hearing this week. That hearing has been canceled and postponed till December. I'm definitely covering that once that is rescheduled. But I also plan before that, uh, I am going to be on top of the Comey cases, the Comey case and the Letitia James case. There's a hearing this week on Wednesday, but unfortunately it falls right at the same time as a big oral arguments before the Supreme Court on tariffs, and that's just such an influential hearing. I just have to cover that one. But you'll be the first to know the next time I am on the beat on the ground, uh, covering something live.
Are you going to go for opening arguments in Sandwich Guy's case tomorrow?
I'm New York City based, so that's gonna be a
Ah,
little bit of a lift, but I will be following that. Actually, funny enough, Allison, I recently, spoke to in an interview Sydney Reed, one of the other,
I saw
uh
that.
yeah, so Sydney Reed is one of her folks who didn't actually, follow that case. She was one of the people who was accused by the Trump administration of assaulting law enforcement. 3 grand juries rejected the case, and instead of giving up the ghost, the Trump administration charged her with a misdemeanor so they wouldn't have to deal with the grand jury. But the case collapsed and she was fully acquitted. She spoke out for the first time on All Rise News, and this is part of a series. Sandwich Guy, of course, his case is a misdemeanor case because again, grand juries said no. And this is part of a trend that's happening both in Washington D.C. and Los Angeles. The joke about the ham sandwich has gotten a lot of traction. I don't feel the need to repeat this, but it's just absolutely extraordinary. And coupled with incompetence, the right of the people to exercise their rights as jurors and grand jurors to stop government overreach has been a consistent trend and something that has been holding power into account.
Yep, that's why everyone get your cameras out, help create evidence. Canada says elbows up, I say cameras out. And if you get a jury summons, take it, do it. You could be on one of these juries, and you could help be protecting somebody's rights. So thank you so much, my friend. If you get a chance, everybody subscribe to All Rise News. If you have the means to chip in and become a paid subscriber to All Rise News, please do. It helps Adam pay for his travel and his lodging because he doesn't have any corporate overlords that are helping him pay for that. That's what keeps him independent and free and able to, just say what's happening without having to look over his shoulder to make sure he's not going to be fired the next day. So if you're able to chip in, please do. Please support him. And also thanks for supporting the breakdown here at MillerSheWrote.com. I appreciate your time, my friend. It was good to see you.
Always great to see you, Allison. Thanks again.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Talk to you soon.